Hi there. Let's talk about outsourcing software development for your product. So your product have different stages at which you'll be considering whether to outsource the software development needs for it, or maybe build an in-house team, or maybe take an hybrid model where you will have some parts outsourced and some parts being developed in-house. So we'll consider all these factors according to the different stages of your product. So we'll be talking about different stages such as your brainstorming ideation stage, where you have an idea and you are formalizing it in terms of how it's going to look like, how the end product look like. You know what problem you are solving. You've done market research, you've done validation, and now you're ready to build your product. I will call it as ideation stage as a whole. Moving forward, once you have established that what your needs are, what your requirements are, and you have a rough design or a prototype maybe, and you want to go ahead with the development of your first version, or let's call it MVP, minimum viable product, and you are ready to develop that MVP. So that will be our second stage that we talk about. And third stage will be where you have launched your MVP and you are going to develop more features for it. We call it as a growth stage, where you are growing your product now. You're going to add more features according to the feedback that you got from users, or you have a roadmap where you have planned certain things that will go into that next version of your product. So we call it as a growth stage, where your product is going into second version, going beyond the launch. So we call it launch stage, or post-launch stage, let's say it. So these are the stages that we'll discuss. MVP, before MVP is ideation, MVP, launch, and post-launch. Okay, first let's expand on three different types of software development teams that I want to talk about today. As I discussed earlier, that we're gonna work with these four stages: ideation, MVP, launch, and post-launch. So we have three models that we're going to talk about in terms of team building. One is outsourcing the whole development, means you will not have in-house team. Second is you will do in-house team, where you will hire developers, designers, software engineers, maybe DevOps, data analysts, system administrators, project managers, product owners for your product, so that they can develop your product. Or you can take a hybrid approach, where you will have a core team, where you will have core members of the team handling design, maybe project management, product ownership, and DevOps, and you have software engineers which are outsourced, or maybe some other stuff you can hand over, like system administration, security, product security, pen testing, maybe some design as well, depending on your needs, depending on your roadmap and how you're going to approach it, and especially at what stage your product is. That's very important. In my experience working with other organizations in the past, I worked with several organizations over the last 20 years as an IT consultant. I've seen people taking different approaches in terms of how they are building their teams around their product at different stages of their businesses. Sometimes they go full outsource mode in the start for several reasons. We can go into those reasons in detail shortly. And then they do a handover from the outsourcing team to their in-house team, which they start building while outsourcing was done and the product was being developed. So as soon as they go into the launch stage, they start thinking about bringing it in-house. That is an ideal approach, where you will start at least building your core team while it's being developed. But it all depends on your strategy, your roadmap, the backlog you have in terms of development tasks, etc. How much features you are bringing into your first version after MVP, how much feedback you're getting back in terms of feature requests from users, and your research from the market. So there are different factors involved. We go into more detail into that. So it all depends on different stages where you are. Different organizations take different approaches. So we'll discuss about their pros and cons. Okay. Organizations take different approaches in terms of whether doing it in-house or outsourced, or having a hybrid approach to building a team around their product. So it depends on the stages where they are at. Let's go deep dive into those stages. So let's talk about ideation first. At the ideation stage, you need to create a strategy for your product development team, that how you're going to develop your product. It is best to hire someone who has experience in building similar kind of products in past, and they have the knowledge and about the tools, about the tool chains, about the different languages used in the industry, different tech stacks used in the industry to develop similar products as yours. They will help shape the team that's going to go around it, because the decisions that are being made at this stage have a long-lasting impact on the product development of your idea. So it is best to have someone on board earlier on who's very much tech savvy and knows the latest technology in the IT sector to help the development of your product at the brainstorming stage. After that, when you're moving into the MVP, minimum viable product, by that time you should have all the requirements laid down in a brief or in a software requirement specification document. And from there, you can plan what features are going to go into the MVP that you're going to launch. That's the first launch. That's going to go into the first launch of your product. So while developing the MVP, one way of doing it is, most organizations do is get a team who has already been doing development for several products in the past, means they have experience, so they can rapidly take on your brief and the design and give you a prototype and develop your MVP for you in minimal time. That will save you cost in terms of time as well as money, because you will not have to wait to hire people from the start and spend time on getting the right people, get them trained, get them on board, etc. Whereas a team that is providing those services will have those kind of skills already in-house, such as designers, such as UX designers, such as system administrator, DevOps, software architecture, solution architect people, project managers. So you will get all of them there for you. And once your MVP is ready, then some organizations do is they start hiring while the MVP is developed for a core team to take over from that team who's developing for you. And that is the best way forward, because you will have that continuity, means the handover will be very smooth. By the time your MVP is developed, you have some team there to take over from the team that was developing it, that you have outsourced to. You might keep that team or some members of that team that was working on you as an outsourced source, and so that they can continue working for you. And that takes us to the hybrid model, where some parts of your software will be developed by the outsourced team and some parts will be developed by your in-house team. So there you can make a decision in terms of which part are which parts are more sensitive for your business, such as your database administration, such as DevOps, such as security. So these kind of roles you can fill in your core team, and software engineers can be taken from the outsourced team, and then they can come and work with you for indefinite time, really. I've seen some organizations doing that, where they got their product developed from an outsourced team, and then those developers carrying on working for them for decades, really, into their growth and carrying on for a long time throughout their life cycle, or different growth cycles of their organization and product. So there's no best way. It all depends on the stage of your product and the type of your organization and type of your requirements and the strengths of your organization, and that's it really. Okay, so different stages have different requirements. at brainstorming stage, you'll be looking at very highly skilled IT consultants to come on board and make strategic decisions for your product, which will have long-lasting impact. So at that stage, you want to bring in someone really quick, really fast, if you want to launch your product fairly quickly. You can either have someone in the board, that means partner or someone who can fill in that role. That's amazing. Then you don't need to look to outsource that role at all. But if you lack that skill in your own core team, then rather than going down the hiring route and trying to find the best person for that, bringing them on board, training them, or getting them onboarded, and bearing that cost in terms of financial and time, you could outsource it to IT consultants who have worked with different organizations and have gathered that horizontal knowledge of different tech stacks being used, different strategies being used, that they can give you a comparison between different approaches, and you can pick and choose which one to go through. Those decisions will be like choosing right tech stack, choosing the languages, choosing the tools to use, choosing the infrastructure to use, and how it's going to be scalable. Those kind of discussions. How you going to manage the risks. What will be the development methodology you're going to use for your product. So these are the key decisions that you need to make at that stage. Moving forward, when you're launching, you can then outsource certain things, certain parts of your product development at that stage, such as your actual software development, if not everything else, because that'll be a massive help in terms of bringing resources, scaling them up. The other thing is, after the post-launch, you can ask that team which was involved in the development of MVP to carry on working with you alongside your core team. So that will be a nice and smooth transition from MVP development into the product growth stage called post-launch development. So I think that summarizes this part where we discussed about what is the best strategy of outsourcing at different stages. The different skills that you need in your core team for your product at different stages of your product. At the start, like at the MVP stage, you need to have designers, you need to do the designing of your product. You need a product owner to decide which features are going in and what is to be prioritized for development, to manage any feedback, any requests for changes, to manage expectations, to manage the resolving of any issues such as software bugs, etc. And you definitely need software engineers. You need DevOps to implement CI/CD, means continuous integration, continuous development, for smooth development of your software development lifecycle. And you definitely need someone for application security, for pen testing, for data security, for compliance. So these are the core skills that you need in your core team, preferably in-house or most of them in-house. You might also need Scrum Master there, depending on the size of your team. So again, that can also be in-house, or you can outsource it with the team who's developing your MVP or who's supporting you transitioning from MVP into post-launch software development of your product. So when your MVP is launched and you are planning to move on to the in-house software development, or you want to have a hybrid approach to software development going forward, and then you'll be thinking about a handover process. I would suggest here that you should have this planned before the start of MVP development, and you should exactly know that what the handover is gonna look like, and you should have made the arrangement with your provider about that process. So both of you are on the same page in terms of how the handover is going to look like, what's going to be included in it, such as the code base, such as the information about third-party applications being used in software infrastructure, software architecture, all these things. So the planning needs to start at the very beginning of the development of MVP. So you have your MVP and it's launched and your business is growing now, and you have more features coming in, you have increased user base, you're going to scale your product up to grow alongside your business for continued growth. So you need a bigger IT team now, and you are considering increasing your core team. Now here you can continue using the outsourced team that you had in terms of software engineers, in terms of maybe product owner, maybe Scrum Master as well, and you're adding more software engineers in-house, such as and also DevOps and security, data analysts, people for compliance as well. So you need to think here that this team that you have, which has all that knowledge, while doing this transition, you need to ensure the continuity. You can carry on, ideally, having these team members with you for as long as possible, so you can manage this change, this continuous change, which is helping the growth of your business. So you can consider going into long-term partnership with your outsourced team to be working alongside your business. My experience, I've seen businesses using these teams for decades, and they grow alongside their core team. They add value to your team, so you don't need to worry about the full handover very quickly. You can do it slowly, or you can just carry on doing it in a hybrid mode. So it all depends on your strategy in terms of your decision, what you're making in terms of how you're implementing your strategy regarding your product. Being an IT consultant for 20 years in the IT industry, I have wide experience working with several startups, helping them from brainstorming, through ideation, through designing, prototyping, building teams for their software development, launching the MVPs, and providing post-launch software development services as a project manager, as a solutions architect. I can help you decide the needs and help you hire the right people at the right stage of your product. So let's have a chat.